Hi Olive, Teacher Hannah here, and today we are getting ready for the holiday of Passover. We have been talking a lot about Pesach, the holiday of Passover, and one of the biggest, most important traditions of Passover is to read the Haggadah, which is a book that tells the story of Passover. And this is such an important story to the Jewish people that we retell it every year from beginning to end. And it's such a long story, but it is so important because this is the story of how the Jews became free people, which we talked a little bit about how they were slaves and they couldn't make any choices and they became free. And today we are so thankful and happy that we are free people and we get to make choices and do what we want and do lots of good mitzvot. So we have a whole holiday every year where we retell this story. And today for you to get ready for Pesach, for Passover, I am going to teach you a little bit about the story of Passover. So let's go. First of all, we need to know that Passover, Pesach, took place a long time ago, over 3,000 years ago. But it's still so important that 3,000 years later we retell it. And this story took place in Mitzrayim. And Mitzrayim is, today we call it Egypt. So it was in the desert and it was hot. And this is what Egypt looked like. Desert, and there were camels where you could ride on because they didn't have cars yet. So people either walked or they rode camels, and it was really hot in Egypt. And in Egypt, they had a ruler whose name was Paro, or Pharaoh. And Paro was the king of Egypt, and he ruled over all the people, but he was not a very nice king. He wanted to be powerful, and in order to do that, he made all of the Jewish people slaves, which means that he did not let them make any choices. He did not let them take naps. He did not let them play. He made them work very hard to build these buildings. He made them work all day in the hot sun, in the hot sand, to build these buildings in the shape of triangles called pyramids. And it was very hard work, and he didn't let them take breaks. He didn't let them take naps. And the Jewish people were very tired and they were very uncomfortable, and they were not happy to do all of this hard work, and that they were not allowed to make choices. They were not allowed to take breaks or to pick what they wanted to do. And all the Jewish people wanted to do was to make their own choices and to celebrate Shabbat and to be happy and to rest with their families. But Paro said, no. I need all of you to work for me and to build me lots of pyramids. So he was not nice to the Jews. He did not make them happy. He made them very sad. And so the Jewish people were sad. And there were two Jewish people in particular. There was a man named Moshe, and he had a sister named Miriam. And they were so sad because they did not want to see the Jews sad and hurt and not able to play or rest or make choices. So they prayed and they asked Hashem, what do? We do not want to be slaves. We want to rest and play and be happy. And Hashem chose Moshe and spoke to Moshe and said, Moshe, it is your job. You are going to help the Jewish people. You need to go talk to Paro and tell him that it's time for the Jews to be free. So Moshe went and walked to the big palace where Paro lived. And he said, Paro, it's time for the Jews to be free. Let my people go. And Paro said, no, absolutely not. I want the Jews be my slaves. I need the Jews to do lots of hard work to build me these big, beautiful pyramids. I am not letting the Jews go. And Moshe said, oh no, what am I going to do? So he went back home and he prayed to Hashem and said, Hashem, what do I do? Paro said, no, he will not let the Jews go. What do I do? And Hashem told him, go tell Paro that if you do not let the Jews go, that I am going to bring some plagues, some bad things to happen to the Egyptian people. And if he says no again, it's going to be bad and scary for the Egyptians. So go talk to him again. So Moshe went and told Paro, Paro, let my people go. And if you say no, then Hashem is going to make some bad things happen. And Paro said, I don't care. I'm the king of Egypt. I will not let the Jews go. And Moshe said, oi, 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 this is not a good decision. And that very day, Hashem made the first plague happen. And the first plague is called Dam, which means blood. And all of the water in Egypt, the entire Nile River, turned to blood so that you could not drink it, because you cannot drink blood. You can only drink water. So if an Egyptian person went to the Nile River with a cup to try to scoop up some water to drink, as soon as they touched the water, it turned into blood and they couldn't drink it. And they got very, very thirsty. But the Jews were safe. And when they went to get water from the Nile, it was water. So the Egyptians knew, oh no, this is a miracle. This is something that's only happening to us, and it's not so good. And it's happening because we're not letting the Jews go. So then the next day, Moshe went to Paro and said, Paro, all of your water is not able to be drunk, and your people are going to get very thirsty. Are you ready to let my people go? And Paro said, no, 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 I will not let your people go. He said, this is just a magic trick and I don't care. I am not going to lose my slaves. And Moshe said, big mistake. Hashem is going to keep bringing plagues until you let my people go. And that very day came the second plague. And the second plague was frogs. And there were frogs jumping everywhere, all over Mitzrayim, all over Egypt. There were hundreds and thousands of frogs jumping everywhere. And it made it really hard to walk around. And everyone said, oh my goodness, how are we going to walk to school? How are we going to walk to work? There are frogs everywhere. It is making it so difficult. And so the next day, Moshe went to Paro and he said, are you ready to let my people go? And Paro said, no, no, no. These frogs don't bother me. They'll go away. I'm not worried. I am not letting the Jews go. And Moshe said, big mistake. More plagues are going to happen until you let the Jews go. And the next day, the next plague happened, which was lice. All of the people got lice in their hair, which means there were little bugs in their hair, and they made it so itchy and uncomfortable. And all the Egyptians were scratching their hair and their heads all day because they had lice, and they were very unhappy. And they started to go to Paro and say, Paro, this is getting really bad. Our head is so itchy. There are frogs everywhere. We can't drink a lot of water. Please let the Jews go. But the next day, when Moshe went back to Paro, Moshe said, are you ready to let my people go? And Paro said, no, 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 I am not losing my slaves. And Moshe said, more plagues are gonna come. And the next plague came, And this plague was that there were big wild animals everywhere. Bears and lions and tigers came and were walking around. And it was really scary for all the people, for all the Egyptians, because they were making a lot of noise. And they were going up to the people and going, roar! And it really scared all of the Egyptians. They did not like having bears and tigers and lions running around their neighborhood. They did not like it. And so Moshe went back to Paro and he said, Paro, are you ready to let my people go? And Paro said, no, no, no. It doesn't bother me. I'm up here in my palace. These animals don't bother me. And so the next plague came. And this plague was that all of the animals that the people owned, all of their cows and their sheep and their chickens, they got really sick. And the owners of the animals were really sad that all of their animals were getting really sick and they didn't know how to help them. And it made them so sad that their cows were really sick. So Moshe went back to Paro, and Moshe said, look at all these terrible things that are happening. Now all of your animals are getting really sick. Are you ready to let the Jews go? And Paro said, no, I'm not. So the plagues kept coming. And the next plague was that all of the people got lots of little bumps. They got boils, little itchy rashes all over their body. They had lots of bumps that itched and hurt them, kind of like how chicken pox are. It was really uncomfortable. They were not happy to have all of these bumps on their bodies. But when Moshe went back to Paro and said, are you ready to let my people go? Paro said, nah, not yet. These bumps are whatever. They don't bother me. I am not going to lose the Jews as my slaves who build my pyramids. So Moshe said, okay, the plagues are going to keep on coming. And the next day, they got some hail. Hail is like snow, but it's harder. It's like ice cubes falling out of the sky. It's really bad weather. It makes it so that you can't leave your house because it hurts. It's like rain, but it hurts if it hits your body because it's hard. So there is suddenly all of this ice falling out of the sky, and it made it really uncomfortable and not so good. Terrible weather. You could not leave your house. So Moshe again went back to Paro and said, are you ready? We need to leave Egypt. We're done being slaves. And Paro said, no, 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 no. I will not let your people go. So the next day came another plague. And this plague was lots of little jumpy bugs that jumped everywhere, but there were so many of them. You couldn't even see anything. There were so many bugs just jumping around. So many bugs. You couldn't leave your house because there were too many bugs. You couldn't move. If you took a breath, you'd breathe in these bugs. There were so many of them. It made it really uncomfortable. It was not fun. So the next day, Moshe went to Pharaoh and said, Paro, are you ready to let my people go? Look at all of these things that Hashem has done to show you that it is time to let the Jews go free and to make choices and to not work all day. And Paro said, no, 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 I will not let your people go. So immediately the next plague came, and this plague was darkness. Suddenly, everything was dark. It was like all the lights went off and the sun went away and no one could see anything. It was so dark and it was really scary and it was hard to walk around. People were bumping into things all over the place because it was so dark. It was awful. And finally, Moshe went to Paro and said, Paro, it's dark. This is awful. Are you ready to let the Jewish people go? And Paro said, this is getting pretty bad, and my Egyptian people are not happy, but I can't lose my slaves. I will not let your people go. And Moshe said, oh my goodness, what is it going to take to get the Jewish people free? And then there was a 10th plague. And this plague was that all of the firstborn children, all the big brothers and big sisters of the family, they got really sick. And they were at home and they didn't feel good and they were in bed and they were so tired and they were just coughing and sneezing and they were so sick. And it was awful. And all of the mommies and daddies who took care of the children, it made them so sad to watch their little children be sick. And the kids were not happy because they were in bed really sick. And Paro had children of his own. And he saw his firstborn son get really sick. And finally, Paro said, oh my goodness, this is awful. My baby boy is sick. That makes me so sad to see my firstborn son be really sick. And so this time, Moshe came to Paro and said, Paro, look, there have been 10 plagues. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plagues that happened. Isn't this enough? Are you ready for the plagues to be over? All you have to do is let my people go. And Paro said, okay, I've had enough. The Jews can go be free, and they can go to the desert and be free. And Moshe was so happy, he ran back home to his tent and told his sister Miriam and told all of the Jewish people, everyone, Paro said the Jews can go free. Let's quickly pack up all of our food, all of our clothing, and leave Mitzrayim before he changes his mind. Because Paro was not happy about this decision, and I'm afraid he might change his mind. So they packed and packed and packed, and it was gonna be Shabbat, but they said, we have no time to make challah because we need to get out of here. So instead of giving their challah yeast and letting it bubble up and rise the way we do in olive class, where we give our challah lots of time to rise, they said, no time. Let's just bake our challah the way it is. And it didn't rise, and it was really flat. It only turned into a cracker. But they were in such a rush to leave that they said, we'll take it. We'll eat the crackers instead of challah. Let's go. And so Moshe and all of the Jewish people left and were walking through the desert, and they got to the sea. And when they got to the beach at the sea, they were at the Red Sea, they saw that suddenly behind them, Paro was coming, and he had changed his mind, and he was trying to run after the Jews with all of his Egyptians and their horses, and the whole gang was following the Jews to say, we changed our mind, we want you back as slaves. And Moshe and Miriam and all the Jewish people were at the sea, and they said, oh my goodness, we've made it this far, but what do we do now? There's an ocean in front of us, there's a whole sea in front of us, and we can't bring all of our stuff and our babies, we're not good swimmers. And they said, Hashem, what do we do? We're at the sea, and the Egyptians are following us, and we can't swim across the whole sea. It's too far, and we're not good swimmers. What do we do? And suddenly, another miracle came from Hashem, and the Jewish people said, we're going to go, we're going to trust. And as soon as they started to take steps forward, a miracle happened. And the miracle was that the sea opened up, and the water opened up, and it turned into two walls, and the middle became sand, so that Moshe and Miriam and their family and all the Jewish people, they were able to walk through the whole sea because it was now sand. There was a walkway, a hallway basically, with water walls, and all of the Jewish people were able to walk to the other side of the ocean, to the other side of the sea safely, and they made it across. And as soon as they made it across, the walls came back down, turned into a normal sea again, and so the Egyptians were not able to follow the Jewish people to chase after them and to make them come back as slaves. And the Jews were on the other side of the sea. They were in a different desert, and they were finally free. They were able to choose when they wanted to work, and if they wanted to take a nap, they were able to take a nap. If they wanted to play, they were able to play. They were able to celebrate Shabbat and make challah and make kiddush, all those wonderful things that we choose to do today. And they were so happy, and this was so important to them that we today, thousands of years later, we still celebrate this freedom and how thankful we are that today we all get to make choices and that we get to be free and we are no longer slaves.